ports are young and growing fast. In 2 generations, the cities have doubled, trebled in size. 1/3 of the Northwest lives in these new cities. The whole world interests these people. They are curious, noisy, energetic. They have the look of the skilled man. They're at home among machines. Electricity is their friend. And yet they still breathe the frontier wind, and the wind still smells of the sea, of the cool mountain, and of the evergreens on the mountain.
The Indian, then, was a nomad. A more advanced civilization called him by another name, vagrant.
Washington, the name of America's hero and first president. The 2 states in the tongue of the Indian, Oregon, Idaho.
By the 1870s, the telephone, the mimeograph, the steam turbine had all been invented. We Americans were smack in the middle of the machine age, worshiping the wheel, we said. But at the same moment, some Americans were still burying their dead in the sky. Not out of ignorance, but by deliberate choice. Some of us were still living, literally, in the Stone Age. Which Stone Age American, wrapped in his sleeping robe, journeyed from here to the beyond country, to the camp of many lodges? No one knows. No one knows his name, nor how, nor when he died. All that is known is that he lived on horseback, and his home was all around him.
As far as the Oregon Territory, of course, at that point it was still actually owned and controlled by the British. But there was the opportunity for settlement out there. The British weren't too concerned about American influence, primarily because nobody thought that there was a possibility of Americans being able to make that kind of a trip for 2,000 miles over barren wilderness.
In 1836, a missionary named Marcus Whitman was one of the first white men to actually lead a wagon train to Oregon. In the spring of that year, he took his wife, 2 wagons, and a small party west to establish a mission in Oregon Territory. In 10 months, they reached the Columbia River, marking a trail and proving that what was once considered sheer foolishness was now a practical fact. Families could cross from Missouri to the Pacific Ocean by wagon for the cost of a few $100s.
It's a young country, and the people who live here feel it. They enjoy the snow, the swiftness of the mountain. They enjoy the summer of the inland lakes.
They told the Indian, "We want no more of your land than the width of our axles, and that for no longer than it takes to leave it behind." These would-be millionaires were an amusing curiosity to the Indian. As the shining metal seemed to magnetize more and more wagons west, the Indians' curiosity and accommodation gave way to uneasiness. More and more they stopped the wagon trains to parley and asked the same questions they had asked the train preceding it. Why do you keep coming into our country, frightening away our game, setting fire to our grass? Each time you say that your wagon will be the last, and each time a wagon follows you. And each time they would be soothingly assured, "There's no cause for alarm. We only want passage across your land, not the land itself." It was a promise the Indian was to hear many times from people who were just passing through.
By the 1840s, word had spread throughout the East. It would be America's manifest destiny to settle the West. Free land and the promise of a better life awaited anyone willing to endure the Oregon Trail.
Resentful of paying tribute and wary of revenge if they didn't, emigrant trains took to corralling in defensive circles. They bolted nervous meals and quieted their fretful children with a new bogeyman. If you don't behave, the Indians will get you.
Here, the west wind moves, and the heavy Pacific moves and lifts against the granite of the Northwest. The noise of the ocean and the silence of this mountain are the same today as they were when the first man looked at this continent.